Katie Hamann, and she is also here with her mentor, Professor Lee Ford from the college. We can have a round of applause. Katie's presentation today will be the minor pentatonic scale in jazz improvisation. Thank you.
So basically, this is a lecture or demonstration regarding a limited use of a collection of notes that we consider the minor pentatonic scale. The information presented here is simply an introduction to the many sounds of this very useful scale. We'll illustrate some of the ways the scale can be used in formal improvisation. We just played a jazz tune entitled "Summertime." It was written for George Gershwin's 1935 opera Porgy and Bess. And we played it with a traditional jazz combo type fashion. We took the original melody, we harmonized it with some jazz chords, we applied some various jazz rhythms and inflections, and then we took a few choruses where I and Professor Ford soloed over the course of the song. Generally, jazz musicians use this type of a sandwich format when playing songs, where we play the melody, we improvise for a few runs, and then we have another melody. The performance plan is generally used by jazz musicians as a way of keeping dancers happy on the dance floor and making a song go as long as desired without repeating the melody and thus having the melody become tiresome. Also, it allows musicians to play longer performances without having to learn as many songs. To balance that out, however, the structure of the tunes that they do play has to be understood thoroughly by the improviser in order to have a successful performance. What you heard in the middle section, which was between the true occurrences of the melody of Summertime, was entirely improvised. So before coming over here, neither I nor Professor Ford knew what we were going to play. We didn't know whether it was going to be fast, slow, lyrical, pointillistic, or whether we were going to have a call and response. It all just kind of happened the last few seconds I was just playing for you all. But whatever happened, happened, and it was mostly, if not all, derived from the set of notes of a minor pentatonic scale. This is the essence of jazz, to explore the possibilities suggested by the format of the song's chord structure. In the case of Summertime, it's a 16-measure song. Other songs may be 12 measures, like C Jam Blues, and another standard length is about 32 measures, like George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. In an ideal world, to improvise suggests its related phrase to improve on the original melody. That probably doesn't happen very often. But it is also understood that each performer who improvises brings their own personal musical experience to the listener's ear. After a few times through the chord progression, I returned to the melody and Professor Ford improvised around the melody with the background accompaniment. This is a normal way a melody bookends a jazz performance, with room for jazz musicians to make their own spontaneous melodies in the middle. One of the beauties of jazz is that no two improvisations are the same. However, in order for it to sound appropriate as a starting place, the informed improviser will often use the same source material, in this case, the minor pentatonic scale. So, where does the minor pentatonic scale come from? All scales in Western music, or at least scales that you would hear played on standard European instruments, is based on the 12 pitches of the chromatic scale. This is also called a dodecaphonic scale, since it has 12 notes before it starts repeating itself. Just as in writing English, we rarely use all of the available letters of the alphabet, except if we ever want to say the sly quick fox jumped over the lazy brown dog. Likewise, we tend to also use fewer than all possible notes in a piece of music. This helps focus the musical idea. By removing 5 specific notes from the chromatic scale, we arrive at the major scale. Now, we can start on the 6th note of the C major scale and get the A natural minor scale. Minor scales generally are known for having a deeper emotional effect on the listener. So, a little bit of history behind the minor pentatonic scales. So, while never having gotten the opportunity to learn or to read or write, the slaves, sharecroppers, and others who historically worked under impossible daily conditions in the fields of the southern United States invented and improvised work songs that they sang to pass the time as they did their menial, tiresome, and oftentimes painful tasks. It's imaginable that this ability to be allowed to sing as they worked might have been the only balm or salve in their often painful moment-to-moment, hour-to-hour, and day-to-day existence. These absolutely brilliant but unknowing composers and musicians further simplified their natural minor scale by removing its half steps, but leaving all of the sweet notes that would work against most harmonies. The emotive qualities of their music is an indicator of the power of the scale that they use, and with this, they made the minor pentatonic scale. Now, for those of you who are in music theory, these notes are generally identified as the 1, the flat 3, the 4, the 5, and the flat 7. The music of these works also drew on from the Southern African American church congregation meetings, which often had a call and response element. One further note that they added to sweeten this scale is called the blue note, and it's added between the 4th and the 5th note. So instead of going adding this blue note takes the minor pentatonic and transforms it into a blues scale. It's fairly common. The minor pentatonic scale and the blues scale are generally heard and interpreted by the listener as casual and folksy, not necessarily quote-unquote sophisticated, but generally more soulful and personal. Yet they are compelling, embodying a certain informal, raw energy that some might say even mimics speech patterns, appealing even to an untrained ear. The minor pentatonic scale is the most common scale to our ears because it became the foundational scale of rock and roll, blues, and jazz music. In fact, most people who learn guitar only learn the minor pentatonic and the blues scale. And for many famous performers, it's the only 2 scales they actually need to know. So if you do enjoy rock or any popular music of the last 70 years, you should be thankful for the African influence that brought the sound of the minor pentatonic and the blues scales to our ears. We should be forever grateful for it because if it were not for the innovations of the African American slaves, sharecroppers, and the music of the African American churches in the South, it is plausible that a lot of the music of today would sound like polkas and marches, rather than the familiar sounds of jazz, blues, and rock. The minor pentatonic scale and the blues scale are critically important to the fabric of popular music. In short, none of these popular styles we would enjoy today could have existed without the minor pentatonic or the blues scale. So I'm going to play a few examples of rock tunes, or riffs at least, that use the minor pentatonic scale. This first one is from Sunshine of Your Love by Eric Clapton and the band Cream. So I have another example. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, because I can guarantee that most of you guys have heard this riff a lot, and a lot of you guys can put a name to it without me announcing it. So, it's evident in many popular songs, whether or not you realize it. So, next, we will play a short tune by Duke Ellington called C Jam Blues, which also uses a blues scale. This song is called Chitlin's Concardi by Kenny Burrell. have a little bit of a shameless plug here. If anyone would like to hear more of this type of music, we have a jazz combo here on campus, and next Thursday we will be playing in Kane from 6 to 8. I'm open for questions, if any of you have any, or I can always play Summertime again. Yes?
Do you have a favorite jazz scale?
Not particularly, no. I think the minor pentatonics are pretty cool, hence why I'm talking about them. you know how it goes. Yeah, I mean, I like all of them. Yes.
When you started working on your presentation, how did you go about picking your songs or pieces that you performed?
Well, what we did is I went to Professor Ford, and for those of you who don't know, Professor Ford is also our jazz professor. So I went to him and I was like, hey, here's my presentation idea. What kind of scales can we work from? And so we decided the A minor pentatonic would probably be easier because in the key of C there are no accidentals. So it's all natural. It's not too much brain power being used. So we went with that, and then from there we opened up, we have these books called real books. They're actually fake books, but we call them real books. So we went to the real book, and we just picked out a few songs. Summertime was one that we picked because it was fairly easy for me to pick up and memorize. If y'all want, I can show you my stand. I don't have Summertime on my stand. But the other songs we just added on as we went, and that's kind of how our process went. We did have some longer tunes that we decided to cut. Some of these tunes I actually played electric bass on, so it was a little bit of a ordeal trying to get it under my fingers for flute. So, yeah. Any other questions?
I was going to mention, thank you for arranging your presentation the way you did so that someone who's highly appreciative of music and gave a good try at it a long time ago can still understand, but also having the proper names of things with an example is really, really helpful. So I appreciate the visual and auditory and all of those pieces coming together for full comprehension of what you're talking about. It made very clear sense. I feel like I could maybe even try to explain it to somebody else later.
Thank you.